Welcome back, everyone. For today's video, we are back and we're covering the Global Chess League, which is being held here in Mumbai, India. Now, those of you guys who are following my YouTube channel, my videos daily, you probably noticed that I did not do a video yesterday after my game against the five-time world champion Vishy. Now, the reason I did not do a video yesterday is that the match was one of the later matches. It was the last match of the day that we competed in, and there was quite a bit of drama and controversy related to the match, meaning that the result was a little bit unclear until a couple of hours after the match ended. Now, I will talk about that shortly in terms of the drama and the controversy, but for the moment being, we're going to start by looking at my game. So in this game, I am playing as a five-time world champion, the Indian superhero Vishy, who is representing the Ganges Grand Masters. So I have the white pieces, and I start out with the move knight f3, Vishy plays d5, and now I play the move c4. Sorry, actually, I didn't play c4, and this gets to the heart of the issue. So I was going to wait until later. As you can tell, I haven't actually looked at this game, so this is me doing it on the fly as I pull it up. This actually signifies what was wrong. So I was originally going to wait and do the drama later, but let's jump right into it. Now, at the start of the game, there's a screen that shows all six of the boards and the relay of the games. Now, the relay was not working. In fact, for the first 20 minutes of the game or so, there were no moves being broadcast, and this actually also speaks to the entire issue. In the game, of course, I played the move pawn to e3 here. I did not play c4, but somehow the DGT board got messed up. So let's get to the correct position here. I played the move e3, we got knight f6, and then I played the move c4. Here, Vishy plays e6, and now I play the move knight c3. Now, one of the things in this game, having the white pieces and playing a game of 20 minutes with no added time at the beginning, is that I was looking to simply play chess, just get a position and avoid heavy theory. So Vishy plays b6, I go b3, bishop b7, bishop b2, and now we get the move bishop e7. Here I trade the pawns on d5, and now I play this move bishop b5. Now, this move is just an idea that I came with on the spur of the moment. It's not the only move here, but the main reason I played it is that were I to play a move like d4, let's just say black castles, and I go bishop d3, black always has the option to play knight to e4 with the bishop and the pawn supporting the horse. When I play the move bishop b5, c6, bishop b2, now any idea with knight e4 is going to be a lot less effective here because black has these pawns in the way of the bishop. So Vishy castles, I castle, we get knight d7, and now I play the move queen c2. We get the move rook to e8, and here I play the move rook to c1. We get the move bishop d6, and now I play this move queen b1. Now, at this point, I was very unhappy with my position because what you'll notice is that even if I play move like d4 here, despite black having these two pawns in the way, black can always play knight e4 as now the pawn and the rook guard this knight, and black has this great bishop on the diagonal, spying this pawn near my king. So I go queen b1 here, also because were I to play d4 here, now this bishop has no scope on this diagonal. When I go queen b1, I'm hoping in the long term that the bishop will be able to do something. So we get the move knight e5. Now I play queen to a1, we get rook c8, and here I play the move rook e1. Now, every move that I'm playing here is simply trying to keep the game going because I must point out that I had already noticed on one of the other boards in this match, we were under serious pressure and likely to lose. So we get knight takes knight. I take, we get bishop to f8, and now I play the move d3. Vishy goes knight d7, and now I play this move knight e2. Now, in retrospect, I thought that maybe I should have played the move bishop g4 to try and pin this knight. If you move the knight, it's spaghetti-o time. You lose the rook and the game. Now, the reason I thought that maybe I should have done it is because after knight to e2, Vishy correctly plays the move queen g5, which not only stops bishop g4 to pin the knight, but black can now play bishop d6, knight e5, and there are all kinds of threats on the king side. So after queen g5, I go knight to f4 here. Perhaps I should have played a move like g3. And after knight to e5, for example, we can simply go for a big trade here. And probably the position is about equal here after, say, rook c2 and rook c1, or maybe even just d4. But I didn't feel like it was enough to try and win the game. So that's why I play knight to f4. We get knight e5, and now I play the move bishop to e2. This is simply a bad move. I probably should have once again simply traded off here on e5 and then played something like d4, rook to e8, and a move like rook c2. And the position is about equal. I would argue that if anybody's better, it's probably white due to these weakened pawns here on the c file, this weak pawn on c6 and d5 here. It seems like white should be better. Of course, it's not much, but this is what I should have gone for. On the other hand, as this is a team match, and I did actually pay a little bit of attention to one of the games that was going on near mine, I felt that I had to win. So this factored in heavily in terms of the position that I was angling for. So I go bishop e2. This is a bad move, but I'm just trying to keep all the pieces on the board. Vishy plays knight g6, an excellent move, and now I played the move knight h3. Now, this is a move that I did not want to play, but I played it simply because I was trying to keep the game going. Ordinarily, I would have traded and played something like d4, and the position is extremely balanced. Let's say black was bishop d6 here. Probably I'd play queen b1, and honestly, it's very hard to see any reason why black should be much better. Let's say we got like queen g5, bishop f1, rook e6, g3, like rook e8, and bishop g2. Maybe bishop g2 is a mistake for all I know, but I thought that it shouldn't be that bad at any rate. But I go knight h3 here, trying to be creative, trying to keep the pieces on the board, and really, more than anything, hoping that Anand is going to blunder. So we get queen h4. I go bishop f1, we get c5, and now I play the move g3. We get queen h5, bishop g2, and here Vishy plays the move bishop a6. Now, this was a little bit unlucky because after the game when I was analyzing with Vishy, he mentioned that initially he wanted to play the move rook to d8, but now after this move f4, let's say black goes bishop a6, and I get knight to f2 here. With the knight guarding the pawn and potential to push one of these pawns either to g4 or e4, combined with these two bishops on the diagonals, if anything, it feels like white should be better. Computer actually thinks that black is fine here, but it's much easier to play. So Vishy goes bishop to a6. Here I play queen to b1. Another bad move in this position. I probably should have played rook to d1 because after queen b1, there's this very nice move pawn to d4. Now, the computer doesn't say this is the absolute best move, but once this move is on the board, I start feeling very miserable about the position because now I know that any chance of winning the game is gone, and I have to make a decision of what I want to do. Now, ultimately, I play this move knight to f4. I think this is just a terrible move. Probably I should have traded the pawns here. I should have gone for takes. Rook takes e1 here. 1 second, you guys. And after rook takes e1 in this position, let's say black was pawn takes pawn here. And after bishop d4, rook to d8, I can play a move like bishop b3, takes, and something like queen to a1. And after bishop to f5, I can go knight to f4, takes, and this position should be a draw because of the even material. But like someone trying to keep the game going at all costs, I instead play knight f4, and after the trade here, black is clearly better. Black has a classic connect 4 of the pawns. I have this weak pawn on d3, and this bishop is completely hemmed in. There's no scope for the bishops here. So with the connect 4, pressure on the pawn, black has a dream position. So we get rook to d8. I play queen c2, bishop c8, queen d2, bishop h3, and now I decide to try and trade off all the pieces. Here I go f3, we get rook e6, rook e4, f5, rook e2, and now the move b5. I go king f2, a6, queen c2, king f7, bishop c1, we get the trade, and now the move queen e6. Here I play queen d2, we got bishop e7, and in this position, I play this move queen to a5. Now, this move is a bad move. It doesn't lose the game or anything, but already here, I should have played queen c2 to stop black from being able to push this pawn. Now, even though black is better here, what you'll notice is that this bishop also is not great relative to my bishop, because this bishop is hemmed in by the pawns. Like if you go f6, it hangs the pawn, but even if we ignore the pawn hanging here, the bishop has no scope. There's no scope on this diagonal. With the bishop unable to really get into the game, unless black can play c4, white should be able to draw. So I go queen a5, and I completely miss this move queen to c6 here from Vishy. Initially, I was thinking after queen to a5, let's say king e8 is played. Maybe if I can get my queen in here, there's some ideas to try and create counterplay to maybe get a swindle opportunity. But when Vishy plays queen c6, this queen guards the pawn. It stops the entry square. The bishop covers the other entry square, and black still is threatening to push the pawn to c4. So here I play queen to e1. We got to move bishop to f6. I go queen to e2, stopping the pawn push to c4 here. And at this point, I've sort of resigned myself to trying to defend and make the draw. We get queen e6, queen c2. I do not trade the queens, by the way, because were I to trade here, I don't know if black is actually winning in this position, but it feels very, very dangerous here. Maybe after bishop to a3, I'm still in the game. But with the double pawns on the f-file, the fact that black can create a passed pawn here with c4 and that its bishops are the same color, there's no way in a million years that I want to go into this endgame. So I go queen c2, bishop e7, bishop d2. Now I start waiting. Here I play the move a4, maybe not the only move, but the reason I do this is that if black goes b4, now the queen side is completely clogged. There's no way to push the pawn forward. And after we get the move king 8, takes, and queen to a2, now my queen has potential to infiltrate on the a file, and the queen, of course, stops black from pushing this pawn to c4 in the position. So we get king to f7, bishop d2, h5, and now I play this move bishop to c1. Now this is a committal move when I play bishop c1. I initially wanted to play this move pawn to h4, but the reason I rejected it is that in the long term, this leaves me with a situation where I have 3 pawns that are on the same color as the darks for a bishop, and I just didn't want that to happen. So I go bishop c1, h4, bishop d2, and now Vishy plays move queen d5 and offers a draw. When Vishy offers a draw in this position, I instantly take the draw because what would have happened is I simply wait with the bishop going back and forth. Black can't really push the pawn forward. And of course, Vishy noticed the results on the other board where one of his teammates had won a game with the black pieces. So Vishy takes the draw, and now we're going to talk a little bit about the drama. So I already mentioned the fact that the boards were not relaying the moves correctly, but you might be wondering, well, what's the big deal? Everybody has to deal with this. Now, it is true that both teams have to deal with this, but the problem with what happened regarding the relays and no moves is twofold. First of all, in my case, because we both had a fair amount of time and the game was simplified, I was able to look around and go to the board and see what was happening. But some of the players who were playing their games, they were low on time, there were time scrambles, they couldn't get up, so they had no idea what the match score was. The second big problem is, I've mentioned this before in the recaps, the time control. The time control for this event is with the players playing with 20 minutes for the entire game with no added time until the 41st move. Now, this is also very critical because with the players not taking notation of their games, they look at the screen, they see how close they are to move 40, and then they can make their moves accordingly. Whereas if you have no idea what move number you're on, you might be thinking that you're just going to run out of time if you get to 10 seconds because you have no clue whether you're near move 40, you're at move 20, wherever you are. So it leads to a lot of issues. Now, ultimately, this played a very, very big role in the match because, as I mentioned before, one of Anand's teammates, Yavokir Sindarov, won his game against Richard Rapport with the black pieces, and one of our players, Bibisara Asubayeva, I may be mispronouncing her name, she won a game with the white pieces, meaning that we're trailing by 1 point, because if you win with black, you get 4, and you win with white, you get 3. So we're trailing by 1 point, but there was one critical game with on one of the women's boards between Teodora and Stavrula. And in this game, there was a situation where both players were low on time. Our player Teodora was winning the game, but ultimately she took a draw in this position because she didn't know what the situation was in the match. So the team filed an appeal. Ultimately, we lose the appeal. There was no replay. It's a tough luck situation where we lose. I would say for me, I understand rejecting the appeal, but in my opinion, for an event that's supposed to be professional and of this caliber, having the DGT boards malfunction, having these issues with relays should never happen. And I think it's really, really bad that this was the case. It felt very, very unprofessional to me. And I can only hope that such things will not happen in future events. So, all the drama aside, we lose a very, very tough match. This means that we now have won 2 and lost 3 matches. We're kind of struggling, and we're going to move to today's match. So today I am playing with the black pieces against the other Indian superstar, the reigning world champion, Gukesh Domaraju, with the black pieces. Now, in the first round of the tournament, playing with the white pieces, I drew my game, and our team would go on to win this match against the PB&G Alaskan Knights. But with our overall situation going to this match, I decided I was going to be very aggressive because, as I just mentioned, if you win a game with the black piece, you get 4 points. You win with white, you get 3. The strategy was go all in because we must win some matches if we hope to make it to the grand final. So Gukesh opens with e4. I play the move pawn to e5 here, and now Gukesh plays the move knight to f3. I go knight c6, and in this position, we get this move bishop to c4. Now, this is, of course, what is known as the classic Gucci piano opening here. It's very, very common at the top level these days. I go knight f6, d3, h6, and now we get this move a3. Now, those of you guys who are very familiar with my games and recaps, I actually was playing the system in the candidates. I had a very, very important victory against Alireza Firouzja in Toronto last year. I also played this against Vidit Santosh Gujarati towards the end of the event as well. So we get a3. Now here I play the move g6, and this was simply fitting in line with my strategy for the game here. Bishop to c5 is also completely playable, but I decided that in this game I was going to go for the classic fianchetto with bishop to g7, castles, and try to create an imbalance. So here Gukesh plays knight c3, bishop g7, h3, d6, and now we get the move bishop to e3. Here I play the move queen to e7, and this was sort of a half-hedged bet when I played this move. I could have castled here, but after the move queen to d2, king to h7, and potentially white castling, or maybe even going g4, it's a very, very tough position to play. I have a feeling that Gukesh is in preparation, and I want no part of this. So I go queen to e7. Now, I could have played bishop to e6 here right away as well, but I was worried about the compromised pawn structure potentially in this situation, which is why I played queen e7. We get queen d2, bishop to e6, and now Gukesh castles kingside. Now here I played the move queen d7, and this is actually a very odd decision by me. During the game, I wasn't sure what to do because Gukesh here is inviting me to start pushing this piece on the king side towards the white king here, and it's a very interesting position. I don't know if it's good or not, but because Gukesh is moving relatively quickly, I decided not to go all in right away. So instead I play this very, very strange move queen to d7, which wastes the tempo, but I'm hoping that when I go queen d7, if white takes, I can still take with the queen, but I really want to try and play for this move d5 in the center of the board. So Gukesh trades the bishops. I take back with the pawn here. Initially, I wanted to take with the queen, but I realized if I take with the queen, white can play d4 here, and white is just a little bit better here after takes, and bishop takes d4, castles. Let's say white goes rook to e1. White has a marginal advantage. Black will have no counterplay or chance to win, and this is just not what I wanted. So I decided to take with the pawn here, and as you're probably noticing, this is ridiculous for a couple of reasons. So if we go back here, I played queen e7 specifically because I didn't want to get the structure, so why didn't I just go bishop e6 right away? Then, after this, I go queen to d7, wasting another tempo, and now I take with this pawn, and it's just a situation where nothing is really making sense. Now here, Gukesh plays move knight to e2, and this is a move that I think is a mistake here for a couple of reasons. Primarily the move that I play in the game, which is pawn to d5. Now here, if white were to play this move d4, I think white still is a little bit better in this position. Even a move like rook to e1 is possible, trying to prevent this d5 move, because after takes, for example, there's takes, and now I believe there's bishop to, I don't know which square, let's say d4, winning this pony on e5, and white wins the game. Had this happened, I think white still has an edge, but Gukesh plays knight e2, allowing me to go d5, building this classic big black center. Now, Gukesh takes the pawn. This is the dream because now I undouble the pawns here. My one issue being, of course, these pawns are on top of each other, but he has to take because if he moves the knight away to guard this pawn on e4 here, now I can go d4, simply trapping this bishop. Bishop has no squares on the diagonal, and black will win the game. So Gukesh takes, I take, we get d4, and now I play this move knight to e4. Now, after I go knight e4, we get queen to d1, takes, and here I play the move knight to e7. Now, what I initially wanted to do in this position is I wanted to castle queenside, but I thought that after takes, and bishop d4, with the exchange of the bishops coming off the board here, let's say I go bishop to f6, and I don't even takes, queen d4, I didn't really think that I could be much better here in this endgame, and I thought the game would end in a draw. Computer says black is better, but I didn't see it, so I thought keep all the pieces on the board. Again, very similar to what I did yesterday against Anand. So I go knight to e7 here. We get bishop to f4, and now I play the move c5. Gukesh goes bishop e5, and here I play the move knight f6. And this is simply a bad move. Again, trying to keep everything on the board versus trading. Had I simply castled here after takes, let's say white goes knight to b3, for example. Now I can play knight to c6, rook to e1, and after this move queen to f5 here, I've got this great knight supported by the pawn and the queen. I have a double stack. I have more grip in the center with these two pawns here. The knights aren't great either for white. So if anything, I think black should be better. But instead I go knight to f6, and now Gukesh plays knight e2, and here I castle my king. Gukesh plays rook to e1, and here I go rook e8, and now after the move knight to f4, I suddenly realize that I've completely butchered this position. These knights are super well placed here. The knight is hitting this pawn on g6, the pawn on d5, the knight can jump to e5, there's also pressure on the e file. This is simply a terrible position. So here I play the move b6, and this move is simply desperation, because initially I wanted to go g5, but after bishop takes knight, let's say I take with the rook, for example, white can play knight to h5, rook f8, and after takes, take in this position, and a move like rook to e5 here, there's this great rook in the center. My king is a little bit weak here. The knight is misplaced. white is going to win. You'll bring the queen up, bring the rook in. Everything is going to collapse here because of this very, very weak king on g7. So that was my initial idea. And then after I saw g5 takes, I thought maybe I could take with a bishop. But now white can go knight to e6, forking the rook and the pawn. And after rook f7, knight c5, and knight d3 here, white is simply up a pawn. These knights are jumping to the center to fork, and I'm going to resign the game very soon. So that's why I go b6, and this move is simply because if white were to take on f6 here, after takes and knight e6, rook f7, now the pawn on c5 is guarded by this pawn on b6. So Gukesh plays h4 here, and this is a move that I thought was a slight inaccuracy. I thought that after this move c3, white was doing very, very well here because his pawn can never push forward. Queen d3 and queen c2 hit this pawn on g6 here, and I don't actually know what my next move would have been. Instead, Gukesh goes h4, and now I play knight g4, and this is a move that I spent a lot of time on, but I think it was very important to spend time here because I have to be extremely precise to not lose the game. So I play knight to g4 in this position, and now Gukesh decides to take. I take the knight, we get bishop e5, and now I play rook f8. Now, as soon as I played this move, I was very unhappy with myself because I realized that after Gukesh's next move, queen d3, I couldn't play queen to f5 here because of bishop to d6 pinning this knight on e7. After takes, let's say rook f7, and now I'll move like knight e5, takes here. With the rook and the bishop pinning this knight here, rook e1 incoming, black is going to lose material and the game in due order. So I play the move knight to f5. Gukesh plays rook d1, and now I play this move rook to e6. Now you'll notice here that at this point in the game, speaking of move numbers, we're on move 26. We have to get to move 40 before there is added time, so it's a very dicey situation to be in. Now I spent 1.5 minutes here before playing rook e6, and the reason is that my initial idea was to play knight takes h4 here, taking this pawn on the edge of the board. But after knight takes knight and knight takes rook, white can sack the rook with rook takes rook and knight g6, forking the two towers. And after rook e8 takes and f4 here, I saw this endgame and I thought this, not rook d4, sorry, takes, I saw rook to e2, and I thought that probably this endgame should be a draw, but if anybody's trying to win, it is white because white currently has one extra pawn. So I spent 90 seconds before playing rook e6, and this sort of, again, speaks to my mind of trying to keep this game going at all costs. Now, after rook to e6, Gukesh plays bishop to f4, and inexplicably here, I play this move rook takes rook after 13 seconds, and this is a blunder that there's really no excuse for. The previous move, I had seen knight takes h4, and now suddenly I just completely overlooked the idea altogether. In this position, if I play the move knight takes h4 here, after knight takes knight and rook takes bishop here, black is actually better. Computer says knight f3 is the best move, and after rook e1 and queen d6, the queen guards both the pawns. I have one extra pawn on the board, and I'm going to have a great chance to win. Now, I'm not sure exactly what I missed here with knight h4. I think I just thought that there's probably some trick, like, I don't know, knight g6 maybe, or something along these lines. But after this move rook to d4 here, queen to g3, for example, I can simply trade the rooks here, take this knight on g6, and I'm much better. But no. As time pressure is looming and simply just not keeping my mind together, now I trade the rooks, and after rook takes rook, knight takes h4 here would no longer be an option because after takes, rook takes f4, queen takes g6. If I go to h8, there's rook to e8, winning the game. And after king to f8 here in this position, white can simply play f3, and if I move the knight, there's takes, hitting the king, and winning the rook on the next turn. So after rook takes rook, I play the move queen to f7 here very, very quickly, and Gukesh goes g3 here, reinforcing the chain of 3 and permanently putting an end to any idea of knight takes h4, as the pawn will always guard the bishop. So after g3, I play the move knight to f6 here. This is a very, very bad situation to be in. I'm down a minute on the clock. My king is weaker. I have all these issues with my kingside pawns here. This is just a disaster. But what I told myself during the game here is, you know what? Keep the game close on the clock. If you can get Gukesh low on time, anything can still happen. So he plays knight e5. I go queen to e6, rook to e2, and now I play this move rook to e8. Now I spent 30 seconds on this move. This is also a situation where I wish I had not spent so much time before moving, but I very briefly felt like trying to make this move knight to e4 work with these knights in the center of the board. But after c4, knight to d4, and this move rook to e3, I simply could not figure out a way to protect this knight on e4 here. Let's say I play h5, takes, I hang the knight in the game. If I were to take, queen takes knight, and if I try to move my knight, there's queen g6. It's a disaster, and I lose as well. So I spent 30 seconds before playing rook to e8. Ultimately, I did find this is pretty much the only move here. If I don't play rook e8, say king h7, there's knight takes g6, queen guards the rook, knight hits the rook hits the queen, and this is GG, why not? So I go rook to e8. Now if white were to take, you'd lose the rook, and black will win the game. So Gukesh plays rook to e1 back, and now I play the move queen to c8, and here Gukesh takes the pawn on h6. Now again, at this point with no increment being added, I simply have to go because I know that if I get down to 20 seconds with no added time, I'm just going to get flagged. So I play queen c8, Gukesh takes, I play c4, and now we get to move queen to f3. Worth pointing out that if I were to take the bishop, there's queen takes pawn here, hitting the king at both of these knights, and after king to h8 here, white can take, check, take, and this leads to checkmate very, very quickly. After king h8, there's knight f7. So after bishop takes h6, I play the move c4, and now Gukesh plays queen to f3. Very important move because if you were to go queen d1, after knight takes bishop, there's no longer a queen takes pawn on g6. So he goes queen to f3. Here I play knight to e4. If I were to take this bishop, white takes knight, and white once again will win the game. So I play the move knight to e4 here, trying to confuse the situation with these knights, all kinds of ideas of forks, and now Gukesh plays the move knight g4. Now, in this position, bishop to f4 would almost certainly be good enough to win, but no doubt with time running down, Gukesh becomes afraid of something like knight to d4, with these knights trying to potentially fork. However, after queen to d1, there's no fork. The knight and the pawn are very, very weak here. This pawn is hanging, and white will win. But Gukesh plays knight g4 instead, and now I play the move rook to e6. Gukesh plays ah5, and here I play this move knight to g5. Now, at this point, I just am moving. I don't really have time anymore to think. The computer says that after knight takes bishop, takes, and king g7, knight g4, knight g5. Apparently, I'm only slightly worse in this position, but with only 39 seconds and really nothing left here, I just play this move knight to g5, trying to go for complications. Now, when I play knight to g5 here, this is what we call a classic fossil or a discovery. I am trying to fossilize this rook on e1. The rook hits the rook, the knight hits the queen, and maybe I have some chances to swindle. Now, here Gukesh plays queen takes pawn. This is not the best move here. Apparently, white can just take and play this move king to h2, and white should be winning. Very, very hard to criticize the play of either of us at this point, because we're just trying to move on flow and intuition. So Gukesh plays queen d5 instead, pinning this rook temporarily, but now I have the move knight to f3, forking the king and the rook. Gukesh takes the pony, but now I can take the rook as there's no longer a check on my king. We get king to h2, and now I play this move queen to e6. Now, this move loses on the spot here. Apparently, after rook to e6 here, takes and rook g6, black is kind of in the game, but after bishop d2 here, with all these threats around my king, this very, very weak king, the knight jumping every which way, honestly, I think I would have lost this game. So I go queen to e6 instead. Gukesh throws in the check here. Bishop to d2 would win because after rook to e2 and bishop c3 here, this bishop, this knight, this queen, everything is coming to roost here. White is going to checkmate the black king. Instead, Gukesh plays queen to a8. I go king h7, and now he inexplicably throws away the game with this move queen to f8. Now, it's a very understandable move to play here from the standpoint of not having a lot of time, because when you go queen to f8, you figure if knight takes bishop, you can simply take, and after king g8, pawn takes pawn. There are going to be all kinds of checkmate ideas here for white. White should be winning very, very cleanly. And if you don't play knight takes bishop, let's just say you play a move like queen to c6 here. Now there's knight to f6 check. I have to give up the queen, and white is going to win the game in 2 or 3 moves. Unfortunately for Gukesh, when he plays move queen to f8, there's only one move that I can play, and with only 13 seconds on the clock, there is no way I'm going to miss it. And that move, of course, is g takes h5 here, because now after knight to f6, I can go king g6, and the king is loose. But more importantly, all of white's pieces here are now under attack in this position, and white is just completely lost. So after knight f6 and king g6, Gukesh plays knight to g8 here. Really the only try. If you play bishop to d2, for example, there are many ways to win, but probably the cleanest is to go rook to e2, hitting the bishop and the pawn. The knight on f6 is still under attack as well. This king is very weak, and white will lose. So Gukesh goes knight g8, trying to guard this bishop with the knight here. But after knight to g8, I now play this move queen to f7. And that's really the last critical move of the game, because when I go queen to f7 here, I'm offering the trade of the queens. If white trades, white will lose the game, because both the knight and the bishop are going to fall here. If white doesn't trade, which is what Gukesh does, where he plays queen to d8, now I can take the bishop. And in this position, Gukesh resigns, because if he were to take the pony, There's queen takes f2, check, king h3, and then I move the rook over, and the king gets stuck. King has no squares available here, and black wins the game. And if you play the move queen to d6 check, hitting the king, I can slide the rook back. The queen guards the rook. The knight is still under attack. The pawn on f2 is under attack. And after queen d2 and knight takes g8, I have an extra rook and a knight, and I will win once again. So that is why after this move, knight takes h6, Gukesh resigns this game. I get a very, very big win for my team, and I think that we're going to win the match. Unfortunately, it was not meant to be, because both Richard Rapport, who would lose to Arjun Erigaisi, Richard Rapport, who would lose to, I simply lost my train of thought. Richard Rapport lost his game, and Vladislav Artemiev, who would lose to Arjun Erigaisi, meant that we lose the match. My one win is worth 4, but the 2 white wins are worth 3 for the PB&G Alaskan Knights. So for a second time in this tournament, I win a game with the black piece. The first one against MVL, and both times that I win my game with the black piece, unfortunately, the team loses the match. Now, this means that we have won 2 matches, we've lost 4 matches. Things are really not going our way headed into the second half of the tournament. Objectively, it's very unlikely we're going to compete for the top 2 places in the grand final. But at any rate, you keep playing, you see what happens, and hopefully something will work out for us. So overall, happy with the result, not necessarily happy with the way I played, but I followed my game plan of keeping this game very complicated at all costs with black piece, and I got rewarded for that with this nice victory. So I get the victory, the team loses. That means after 6 rounds, we're near the bottom of the table, but there still are 4 rounds left to go, and we'll see what happens. So on that note, I'm going to call it for right now. So I hope you guys enjoyed this recap from the Global Chess League being held here in Mumbai. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, make sure that you smash that subscribe button below, and we'll be back with more great recaps in the coming days. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a great rest of your day, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening, and I will see you very soon. Have a good one. Bye.